don't forget we have the Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. All of them are at Lifestreams with the exception of Twitter. Just got to throw a 1 onto the end of that. Am I making all the announcements?
No, do it. All right. You can go ahead and email me at interact@livestreamsonline.net or text me at 714-367-6113. And I will get your questions. However, we're going to do things a little bit different tonight. We'll let Pastor Tae explain that in a moment. Also, as you see, the Java for Life cart is over there, and there's some devotions. I guess I'll print it next week.
Okay.
I forgot I was going to do this. Anyway, there's a new
devotion.
It's Courier Week, sorry.
Yeah.
There's a new devotion coming out next week.
Right.
So we will introduce that, and it's Present Suffering, Future Restoration, and it's a wonderful devotion, and it really hits home with a lot of us. So check that out next week.
All right. Well, the little different, Trisha sitting right here in the front. I'll explain why in a little bit. And then we have David Ash hiding in the back. He's over there. David, say something about the prayer meeting.
We're doubling our attendance every week, so tonight we'll be still in this room. So come over to the chapel and we'll have our prayer time, and your prayer cards on your tables there, the green ones, then put them in the red mailbox, and we'll be praying for them tonight.
All right. Well, thank you, Trisha, David, and it's good to have Chris back. We want to welcome all of you to Lifestreams, which is our Wednesday night program open to everyone, friends and family, the community. It's an opportunity for us to search the Word of God for answers for our lives. The inspiration comes from Psalm 1, which describes the blessed man or woman like a tree that is planted by the streams of water. As you can see by the picture on the screen, the Word of God is so picturesque, filled with images about how our lives ought to be. So here's a tree planted by the water, and the streams of water represents the Word of God that streams into our lives, making our lives that much stronger. And so tonight, we are going to continue our series called Getting Back Up. And this is a series about your life being turned upside down and all the unfortunate things that happen because of it. And so your life has been rolled over like a turtle. And what are we going to do? How do we get back up? And so with this series, I thought we'd try something different, and that is make it more interactive. So you guys can open up the Lifestreams Facebook even right now. Post your comments. I know Chris does that. Images get posted. There's Trisha over here. She's going to be receiving your text. Text her. You guys know the Lifestreams number there. And also, the reason why they are out there in the audience is that they're going to try something new tonight. Because last week we had a great time where we opened it up to you and you guys interacted with me. We never really did that for the past 3 years, but I thought it was really good. And so tonight we're going to try something new. We're going to have David and Trisha out there with you guys. Raise your hand, they'll come to you and give you the mic. Or you guys can shout out your questions and comments. You guys can text her. You guys got all kinds of options tonight to make it interactive. So go ahead and take advantage of that. So here we are in this 4-week series, and tonight is the second installment. And you might remember last week we started with the first installment, or first perspective, which is your faith. And again, the scenario is something happened to you, okay? You may not have done it to yourself, but something happened to you. Some accident, some tragedy, loss of a loved one. So your life is now turned upside down. The first place we have to examine, or we did examine last week, is your faith in God. And really, God's plan for your life and our plan. And what is the relationship between the two? Do you guys remember the classic passage we looked at? It's in Proverbs chapter 16, verse 9. The heart of the man plans his ways, but the Lord establishes his steps. And so we spent that night talking about how you have a plan, and there's nothing wrong with that, but God also has a plan for your life. And His plan is greater than your plan for your life. And we spent a lot of time unpacking that. Now, because of time, we can't review all of that. I'm going to say that the audio is going to be posted along with the visuals. Will be posted on our website, livestreamsonline.net. Go ahead and take a look at that. There's all kinds of stuff you can download and listen to there. It'll be posted very soon, as well as it'll be posted on our Facebook. So if you have not become friends with the Lifestreams Facebook, you can take care of business tonight, okay? Go ahead and like us, and that is a good thing to do, and you'll see all kinds of pictures and comments on there. So let's leave it at that. You'll get last week's installment posted up there very soon. So here we are now with the second installment, and we want to pick up where we left off by saying, yes, we acknowledge that God does work in our lives, okay? That God does have a greater plan for our lives. But you know what? Let's be honest. If your life is rolled over, you might be very unhappy about it. On the one hand, we acknowledge by faith that God has a greater plan for our lives, but that doesn't always make us happy. You know what I mean? By faith, you know it's a good thing, but why are you still so miserable? The fact is, when your life is rolled over, there are all kinds of raw emotions that are still there. And although on the one hand, installment number 1, you know God is working, you still feel so rotten. And so tonight's installment, the second one, is about your feelings. What are we going to do? How are we going to sort out all of these different feelings? So even though we know God is at work, it's still incredibly hard emotionally. You know what I mean? Has anybody said that to you? Hey, God has a plan for your life, but you still feel rotten? You still feel terrible? Hey, we got to sort out all of these feelings, and that's what we're going to do tonight. And the rule for tonight is you can interrupt me anytime you want, David, okay? Or anybody on David's side, we'll split the room in half. On David's side, you can ask him to come to you, grab a mic and talk. And anyone on Trisha's side, you can ask her to come to you. And we'll try to sort these feelings out. Now, I'm going to use 2 broad categories, okay? The wrong way and the right way, okay? So we're going to talk about the wrong way to deal with our feelings and then the right way, okay? So that's our itinerary for tonight. Let's start with the wrong way as far as feelings. Again, the scenario is your life is rolled over, okay? That's where we're at, okay? Like that upside down turtle. And the first wrong way of dealing with your feelings or emotions is to hide them. Number 1, hiding your feelings, okay? So I know that's kind of a natural tendency because especially if something happens to you, it's kind of like some big secret in your life. Maybe you don't want to tell anybody about it, but why would somebody hide their feelings, okay? Why? Shame. Nice, okay? What's another reason somebody would hide their feelings? Guilt or painful memories. You don't want to think about it. And so what are you doing? You are trying to avoid the situation, okay? So these are some of the reasons. Now, I'm going to say, generally, and again, feel free to interrupt. I'm going to say that there are some dangers involved in hiding your feelings. Here's the first one. It can create distance in your relationships. Because if you're hiding and you're trying to avoid, next thing you know, what you're doing is you're creating a distance, emotional distance. You are becoming aloof. Maybe you don't want to spend time with the other person or what have you. So as far as the horizontal relationships are concerned, it can definitely break those relationships and maybe bitterness or whatever if you have some issue against the other person. So that's one of the dangers. Here's the second one. It can lead to other sins. Now, if you hide your emotions, next thing you know, you've got other sins that are now coming up because you are hiding them. Now, the classic example, actually, let me turn that into a question. What is the first classic example? You know it's going to come from Genesis, right? First classic example of somebody who had an issue in his heart. He tried to keep it inside, but it didn't stay there. It eventually came out. That's right. Cain. And God knew it. God actually came to Cain in Genesis 4 and said, what's wrong. Now, at that time, Cain was just hiding it inside. It was just his own personal issue. He tried to deal with it. He was angry. He was disappointed. But how did the story turn out? It turned out as murder, meaning he tried to hide it, but it led to another sin. And so that's the danger of hiding your emotions. It could come out at another time. We've seen it, they've done a lot of documentaries, like, for example, on postal workers, right? Everything's fine, and next thing you know, it comes out. Or you hear those crazy stories on TV about two kids that beat each other up over a turkey dinner or something. You're like, that sounds so ridiculous. But it's because there's some other thing inside their heart, right, that has now been triggered by some silly thing. And so we know that if you keep it inside your heart, it can definitely lead to other things. Okay? All right. Continuing on our blackboard, here's the third possibility, and that is it ruins your prayer life. Okay? Now we got a prayer meeting tonight. But what if you go to that prayer meeting, or by yourself, right? And now you're not dealing with all of your issues. You're kind of trying to hide it from God. Or have you ever done this? You don't have to confess it, but have you just kind of prayed, but you're now just saying all the right things, like being theologically correct, but yet in reality, you're not really dealing with what's inside your heart? Hey, God knows what's really there. And so it kind of ruins your prayer life because you're being dishonest with God. And so there's definitely a danger with that because God knows you're upset. God knows you're down. And so hiding it from God, it only ruins your prayer life. Make sense? All right, here we go. The last one, last but not least, and there's more. But God may cause even worse feelings. Is that really true? If you're hiding something in your heart, okay, and it's there and it's not dealt with and it's unresolved and it begins to grow and fester like in the case of Cain, next thing you know, God is actually making you feel worse. Listen. King David actually realized that in Psalm 32, verses 3 and 4, when he said, and I italicized it, when I kept silent. And so now he's talking about an issue that he kept hidden in his heart, right? My bones wasted away through my groaning all day long. For day and night, whose hand? Your hand was heavy on me. My strength was sapped as in the heat of summer. And so his strength is sapped. In other words, he's feeling worse because of who? God is the one now making him feel worse. In other words, God is saying, come on, now deal with it. And he's making you uncomfortable. He's making you feel worse. You feel absolutely miserable. You're spiritually down. And wow, to think that God is actually involved in that process. Okay? So, don't hide your feelings. That's my point. Okay? Because there are a lot of dangers involved. So to use the turtle analogy, don't go inside your shell. All right? That's not the response here. So, what is the opposite of hiding your feelings?
Blurting it out.
Is what? Blurting it out. Or venting, okay? Revealing the feelings. And so let's continue to write on our blackboard. The second thing that is wrong is venting your feelings. Now, venting is actually a very popular thing to do today. We have expressions like, get it off your chest, or let it all out. But the truth is, even though this is very popular in psychology, there's something seriously wrong with it. So let's talk about the dangers of venting real quick. First, it can create a false sense of resolution. I mean, you're going to feel good for a moment, but you're going to realize that's just a delusion. Nothing has been resolved. Nothing's been reconciled. In fact, I'm going to say it actually breaks relationships with other people. Because if you let it all out, somewhere in that process you're accusing, right? You're blaming. You're blame shifting. And with all the things that go on as those feelings come out and those feelings are raw, you're upset, chances are other person's going to get defensive, you're going to get more angry, and that relationship is definitely broken. Next one's pretty serious. Your relationship with God could be broken. Just think about that. There are a lot of times when people's lives are turned over, who do they blame? They blame God, right? And so now you're venting at God. You're accusing Him of things. And when you do that, that's some serious violation there, because God is not the author of evil. God is not the one that is, doing that to you. So when you're accusing Him of that, that can really break your relationship with God. All right. Next one's pretty important, boys and girls. Continuing to talk about the wrong way, and that is medicating your feelings. Okay? Now today, I don't know what is going on, but why is there a pill for every emotion that is out there? Okay? Not just for adults, but if you send kids to a counselor, right, what are they going to do? They'll write out a prescription. There's like a pill for every emotion out there. And so I just got to take a minute and say something about that. Now, don't overreact, and if you want to talk about it, go ahead and text or grab a mic. And that is that there is a place for medicine in our lives. But even good things can go overboard. And the problem with a lot of the medications today, especially the ones that deal with emotions, like you're really down, especially the medicines for depression and what have you, there's some serious problems with those medications, all right? Now, I'm speaking generally. I'm not talking about whatever prescription you're taking right now. I don't know what it is. But listen, a lot of them are designed to just erase whatever emotion that you have. So when you first pop that pill, you might feel really good. But it's only because it dulled the senses. It dulled those emotions. So technically, you're just like wiped out. You're just flatlining emotionally. So you're not feeling anything, good, bad, whatever. But for a moment, you kind of feel okay, because now you're not bouncing off the walls or whatever. But listen, there are some serious problems with it, because what happens when you get off that medication? It just all comes back. And so you realize that medication hasn't solved anything. You know what the only thing the medication has done? Caused you to become dependent on it. And how much is the problem today of addiction to prescription medication? That's a serious problem in our country. And so we need to consider all of these things. So as I think about dependence and addiction, I'm going to say this. Dependence on meds becomes a substitute for dependence upon God. And that can happen to you, because you're just taking it to wipe it out. It's like some pink eraser that wipes out your emotions and maybe your memories. But again, you're not really depending on God, and I think that's an important Christian response to all the over-medication that is going on. All right. You guys are behaving very well. No issues? Let's talk about the right ways of dealing with our emotions, okay? Are you guys all on medication? Is that why you guys are so dull? I don't know. What is going on here? Oh,
David's got Sally over
there's
there.
a question or a comment over here.
Okay.
Sally.
When one of my kids was quite young, we had to medicate him. And he took a certain medication for 10 years. And he is now 53. And after 10 years, he went off of it. We had a few problems, quite a few problems. But the thing is, he never felt that he needed to take this medication. And our problem has been ongoing until now. And 2 weeks ago, I asked for his forgiveness for my stupidity and not depending on God to raise him and letting the doctors tell me what he needed. And he has forgiven me. He said, it's not your fault. The doctor was trying to make a name for himself, and God is gracious.
Okay.
But it took that long.
Yeah.
He was 17, he's now 54.
Wow.
And we've had this strain between us, and it's been from that medication.
Okay, thank you. Very courageous of you, Sally, to share that story. And again, I'm a firm believer. I'm going to say something very simple. Depression, anxiety, whatever, bitterness, ultimately, these are spiritual issues. Okay? Ultimately, we have to never lose that perspective. Now, does that mean I'm against medication? No. I've already confessed. I love NyQuil, right? So I've already said that, right, in the previous series. I take medications. But I'm just saying, there's issues of dependence, And I never want to get to a point where I believe any medication can solve my spiritual problems. If there's some serious hormonal or chemical imbalance, there is a place for medicine. Okay, I'm not against it. We just have to be very, very careful. All right, let's keep on going. Interrupt me anytime. We're making good time right now. We're going to talk about the right ways. Tricia, can you grab? I'll take your mic back there.
Sorry.
Keith, you wanted to say something about maybe some wrong ways or medications there. Keith.
So there's but isn't medication usually for like a serious problem? It's like you can't just have medication for every little thing.
Like I said, I'm not opposed to medication
Yeah.
for serious problems.
No,
There's
but
some
no.
people with serious...
No, but what I'm trying to say though is it seems silly to have medication for just because you're feeling down and all that kind of stuff.
Well, that's kind of the generation that we're living in right now.
Because I mean, I had a roommate that said, well, like let's say you have OCD or some medication, but a lot of the things are just behavioral and stuff.
I do believe
Yeah.
a lot of those are spiritual and behavioral
Yeah.
issues.
'Cause,
Even,
no,
I
I'm
think
not-
we're also over-medicating kids.
Well, I
Yes.
actually agree with you, actually,
Yes,
on a lot of
uh-huh.
things. It's just, it seems kind of silly to have medication for everything. It's not good for you biologically or emotionally.
Well, that's where we are in our education
Yeah.
system. We're training psychologists and
Yeah.
psychiatrists
Yeah.
to quickly pull out the prescription pad
Yeah, because
and start medicating.
the only time, in my opinion, that they should have medication is if you have a serious disorder or something.
Okay.
But if it's all within normal behavioral patterns, it should just be worked out mentally.
Okay.
You know?
All right, very
like,
good.
Like what you're saying.
All
Oh, no,
right.
this is a comment.
All right, thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Thank you,
Okay.
Keith. And let's take it over here to Diane, right here. Tricia?
I think part of the problem too is in our society. I'm sure you all watch TV, and every time you watch TV, you see some advertisement for some pill, and that makes it sound like it's the answer to everything.
Yeah.
But what you forget is there were 42 different side effects
Right.
of that pill, but that people are going to their doctor and specifically asking for medication, and that's a ploy on the pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
That's how they're getting more and more medications that people are taking.
Yeah, and I'm really, it almost makes me laugh, you know, those commercials. It's like a serenic scene. They're at a picnic and they're sitting down and they advertise some medication, some fancy name, and then they start listing all the side effects, right? And the side effects are even worse than what you're trying to treat. It even mentions things like suicidal thoughts. You know, it's like, what? This is unbelievable. So the whole thing is messed up, okay? So, yeah, we're over-medicating is what I'm trying to say generally. Yes, David. Yes,
Just a
Carol.
comment on that comment. I just read in the paper today the AMA has asked the FDA to ban advertising directly to consumers of drugs.
Oh, okay.
That doesn't mean
Interesting.
they'll get it, but
Yeah, yeah. I think it's just going crazy right now. But it ultimately goes back to a philosophy and the school of psychiatry and how do we deal with spiritual problems. And so, yes, John.
Hi, Tay. Tay, I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous for 7 years and 3 months, and we deal with these kind of problems on a personal, one-to-one basis. And all the fear, the anxiety, the guilt, and the shame, the remorse, regret, resentment, and reservation are acquired syndromes, just like we acquired our addiction. They come to you over a period of time. We weren't born with those things. We weren't born with fear and anxiety. And we overcome those by not medicating, self-medicating, and most people think that's the answer. But the true answer is turning to God and giving your life over to care of God and let Him guide you through these things with the faith and the strength and the love and the peace that He gives you to overcome your addictions. And, we see it every day. And believe me, the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, there are people lined up there from here to San Diego waiting to get in to learn how to deal with their addiction.
All right, thank you, John. Very much. Okay, I apologize, but we got to move on. I want to give you some right ways tonight, okay? So let's quickly go over these, but again, if it's something that's urgent, go ahead and stop me. Let's talk about the right ways now. Number one, be honest with God. Let me ask you a question. Is it okay to be 100% honest with God? I mean, brutally honest. I mean, every deep, dark, secret issue you have, are you okay to be that honest with God? Yes or no?
I have been, yes. I hope he's okay with that.
Absolutely. I even heard a yes from this black thing back here. Yes.
He knows way too much
okay.
about me.
So again, listen, not venting, we already said venting is wrong. But I mean just heartfelt, gut-wrenching, expressing to God exactly how you feel, it is absolutely right. In fact, the Bible has, I would say, more than 40% of the Psalms are like that. If you read the Psalms, why are they so popular? It's because so many of them you can relate to, right? That says, where are you, God? I'm in this situation. My friends have abandoned me, or I've been hurt, or whatever. You're not around. And these are brutally honest. The category that scholars put is lament. They're called lament psalms. And more than 40%. That's like every other psalm is like that. And so you're reading these psalms and you're realizing, by the way, someday I'll tell you my testimony, but one of the ways I came to Christ was by reading the lament psalms and realizing, wow, this guy is just like me, complaining to God about all of these things. But listen, every lament psalm has a part 2. And that is, he'll complain and complain and complain and complain and lament. And then at the bottom he'll say, but I'll still trust you. I know that somehow it's going to work out. And that is the lament of a believer. So you can believe in God, but you still have to be brutally honest with him, okay? So because of time, I'm going to leave it at that. Still trust him based on installment number 1 last week, that he's got a great plan for your life. But go ahead. Be absolutely honest with God. Now we're going to dig a little bit deeper right now. Wow, it's hot up here. Dig a little bit deeper right now. From this, now don't forget number 1. Go to number 2, which is very, very, very deep. Experience it with God. What is the it? I'm talking about all your raw feelings. Go ahead and actually experience it with God. Now this might be a new theology for some of you, but it is actually a very foundational theology, and that is, God doesn't just hear your prayers, God actually comes down and experiences them with you. And if you really understood that, maybe you would fall on your knees a little bit more. Because God actually comes down and he actually gets into your experience. The classic passage for that is Hebrews chapter 4, verse 15, where it says, for we do not have a high priest, I'm talking about the Son of God, who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses. Now this is the New International Version. You know the New International Version went through a change, right? Back in the early 80s, there was the New International Version, and recently there's the New International Version. Okay, so this is the New International Version. And so with this, I was actually surprised. I didn't know they made this change. When I looked at this, because I memorized this based on the old New International Version, this New International Version has this. What is the word that surprised me? Empathize. I put it there in a different color. Empathize. What is in the old NIV version? Anybody? Starts with an S. What's the other one? Empathize and?
Sympathize?
Sympathize. That's the one in my Bible. When I bought my Bible back when I was in high school, okay, that's when I memorized it and it had sympathize. But now it's empathize. And my first reaction was, wow, they improved it. It is so much better. What's the difference between sympathy and empathy? Sympathy is just kind of understanding, like, I hear you, man, I understand what you're going through. Empathy is actually sharing the experience. It's a mutual experiential thing. And so what this verse is saying is that when you go to God, or in this case the Son of God, he actually comes down and he experiences and suffers with you. So if your life is turned upside down, that's how much Jesus cares, is that he will actually suffer with you. The original Greek word, and this is why I was happy with the new NIV, okay, is that the word is sympasko. Sum means with, pasco means suffer. So the original is suffer with, where we get our word sympathy, but sympathy went in a different direction, English-wise. And so empathy, I think, is the better translation. He empathizes, meaning he comes into our lives and he actually suffers with us. So, how cool is that? He suffers, therefore, go ahead and share your experiences with God. That is the proper way of dealing with that. In fact, can I ask you this? Has there been times when you prayed to God and you just like at a loss for words? Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah.
You don't even know, I mean, you're hurting so much you don't even know what to say. Your pain is so raw, your feelings are just like so fresh, you don't even know what to say. Have you ever just prayed where you're just crying?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no words. You're just crying. Now the spiritual terminology, I can't even talk, is groaning. You don't even know what to say. You're groaning. Pop quiz. The Bible actually talks about your groaning, how you don't even know what you are supposed to say in your weakness. But even in that moment, God shares and actually groans with you. What am I talking about? Anybody? Romans, that's the right book. What chapter? Don't say come on, because, okay, I'll give you a hint, Sally. It's a chapter that has the verse, for we know that in all things God works for the good. Chapter 8. By the way, it's in that section that he says this. Spirit helps us in our weakness. We do not know what we ought to pray. So there's the groaning. But the Spirit himself intercedes for us. And I should have put the next phrase. It says, wordless groans. And so now the Spirit is coming down. And so think with me. You have in Hebrews 4 Jesus, and now you got the Holy Spirit. Two members of the Trinity that are now experiencing with you, even if you don't have the right words to say. And so this is a great theology of how when you're emotionally down, you don't even know what to say, but the Holy Spirit in this case comes to you and he just weeps with you. He groans with you. And Trisha, does that sound like any devotion you're working on right now?
I was just going to say, I just read all of that in your new devotion.
Right. And that's coming
Romans
out
8,
real
yeah.
soon.
Yes, next week, I
It's
promise.
a brand new one called cappuccino, which is my favorite drink. Okay, it is my drink of choice. And that thing over there is not cappuccino. That is a super sweet, delicious caramel candy liquid. I don't know what that is. It is so delicious, but it's not cappuccino. Right? Anyway, it's a new devotion where I actually unpack this whole groaning and suffering, and I wanted to present it to you in time for this series. And Julie doesn't know what to say, and you're in that much pain emotionally, and that God's going to come down and he's going to share that emotion with you. Here's my point.
She's our barista.
Here's a truth. I actually was inspired by Julie. That should tell you, God's not in a hurry to pull you out of that Facebook to me. Sometimes you might think that when you're crying like that, with an idea that I should do a devotion. Let's go. I want to take you out of that hard times and sufferings. What God is trying to do. He's actually coming down, and if he's going to come down, what's happening? So, Julie, he's actually engaging you there. I give you the credit. Means it got me going. As painful as that was the start of this new series called Cappuccino. To take you out. That's going to be released next week. But because your request is just valuable about that groaning process, it's so deep and profound. That pain. That it's not like anything. I'm going to answer a question or a comment that somebody in this room said to me about 3 weeks ago. It is. I want to answer it publicly. It's just so much longer in the person's name, and so that'll be released, Lord willing. This is next week. The person we're up against the clock. I know we started 15 minutes late. Just give me a couple more minutes. The scenario is that a loved one wrap this up. But I have some important things I got to say to you. I guess what I'm saying is, texted when you're suffering like that, when you're groaning, lost a loved one, and I can't remember exact wording of the text, but it was to a wish that, we all tend to have, like, I hope you feel better, or may God's peace come to you, or, the kind of nice things we say to people, like, I hope God's peace and joy would come to you soon. And the response that came back to that text was that God has not given me that peace. He has not given me that joy. And the person who texted that person, I guess, wasn't quite sure what to do with that. All right, here's my response to that. Sometimes we wish joy and peace. We wish that people would get out of a situation because we feel like it's not right for them to be in that situation so long. Hurry up and get out. It's that mindset. Let's get out of that situation. Experience God's joy and peace. And if that person is not experiencing it, they might get frustrated and saying, well, I'm not. It's still fresh. I've just lost a loved one. And I guess my first response is, you know what? It's okay if that joy and peace has not come yet. Maybe it's still time for you to grieve. It's still time for you to hurt. Maybe there's still things that are unresolved. I'm going to say that the Christian life is not a continual state of happiness. Like somehow you got bumped off of that and you got to quickly get back on. That's not the plan. In fact, I'm going to say even stronger, the goal of the Christian life, okay, is not to be happy all the time. The goal of your life, here's the meaning of the life moment, okay, is not happiness. Okay? Remember we talked about Disney last week. We said it's not live happily ever after. It's not happiness. So, what is the goal of your life? Give me the Christian goal of your life. What is it? It's not happiness. The goal of your life is to do what?
Glorify God.
It's to glorify God. And that might mean staying in an imperfect marriage. That might mean being in a dysfunctional situation. That might mean accepting the reality of your health situation, loss of a loved one, going through difficult times, all the complexities of your life. Okay? Now, I know that raises all kinds of questions, but remember, we're not done with the series yet, okay? Just hang with me. All right. We're almost done. Experience it with others. This one I'm not going to explain. We don't have time. But you experience it with God, you experience it with others. Mourn with those who mourn, right? There's a classic passage there. And last but not least, this will be my final point. Get back up despite your bad feelings. Okay? Now, this is one of the most important Christian life lessons you have to learn. Okay? Every Christian must learn, number 4. So, hey, that turtle is right side up again, huh? And my point is, you don't have to feel good to get back up. You see, a lot of Christians think they have to feel good, be inspired, and then they can get back up. It's almost like they're waiting for God to kind of bless them in a way that they feel great, like go to the mountaintop, to a retreat, feel great, and now you can get back up again. And I'm saying that's not in the Bible. You can get back up even though you feel rotten, okay? What I mean by that is this. Feelings are not a prerequisite for doing the right thing. Okay? I'm going to ask you a question, and the answer is yes. You guys ready to answer it? Here we go. Okay? Is it right to get back up at all times? Here's the next question, and the answer is yes. Okay? Is it always right to obey God? Okay. If that's true, my point is you can obey God whether you feel like it or not. Why? Because doing the right thing is always more important than how bad you feel. Because you can do the right thing even though you don't feel like doing it. So, pop quiz, boys and girls. Name something you do every day in your life, okay, that it can be an everyday mundane thing that you do even though you don't feel like doing. Go to work is classic. Who's got another one? The dishes. Classic answer. Who's got another one? Getting up in the morning. Oh my goodness, that is such a good one. Okay, these are things you do. You get up, why? Not because you want to, but because you have to. It's the right thing to do. Anything else? Okay? Pay the bills. Okay. I'm going to say something that might surprise you. Prepare for live streams. Do you know how much work it takes to create images, presentations, organize, prepare kids' song. I know it looks like we're fooling around up here, but it just takes a lot of work. And most of the times, I'm tired, I'm struggling, I'm stressed to look for right images. It's hard work. But here's my point. I don't feel guilty when I feel bad about it. I do it because I believe it's the right thing to do. Okay? And that's why I do it. I don't do it because I want to do it. And for me and for you, the greatest example, here's the question. Who is the greatest example of doing the right thing even though he did not feel like doing it? Who is the greatest example of that? Jesus Christ when? In what situation? On the cross, but prior to the cross, he actually articulated that he didn't want to go through it, but thy will be done. I heard it. Garden of Gethsemane, right? Isn't that the classic example of when he pretty much said, if there's another way, let this cup pass from me. I don't want to do it, but your will be done. Jesus is the great example, so we need to look to Christ to do the right example. And isn't that what we want to teach our little turtles, right? We want to teach our kids, right? Don't we? Because how many times do kids do what they do just based on their feelings? Don't they always say, I don't want to do it. I don't feel like doing it. So name some things kids don't feel like doing. Homework, classic. That's another one kids hate to do.
Eating their vegetables.
What was that? Clean the room. Oh, that's a really good one. Who's got another one? I'm sorry? Brush their teeth and eat the vegetables. Classic examples. And listen, would any parent say, oh, you don't want to do your homework? Okay, well then don't do it. No parent would say that. Oh, you don't want to take a bath? Oh, it's okay. You don't have to take a bath because if your heart's not in it, you'd be a hypocrite. Don't do it. No parent would even think that way. What would a parent say? You still have to do it anyway, right? Because what child wants to, well, you forgot one thing. Practice music. Who wants to practice piano or violin? Nobody. But you do it because it's your job, it's your responsibility. And so, oh my, before you teach the kids a lesson, you need to understand that Jesus Christ is the ultimate example of that. And as a godly parent, teach your little turtles to look to Christ. Okay? Because sooner or later, their lives will be turned upside down. And they got to still get back up. And we have too many kids now, even now, that are getting depressed. And listen, when you tell a depressed person, we have so many depressed people today, okay, not just in our church, but in society. You tell a depressed person and try to whip up his feelings or try to make him feel better, that is a tremendous disservice to them. Why? Because they feel so bad. You're like adding insult to injury. You're like kicking them when they're down, saying you should feel better or try to tell them some feel-good story. That's not the strategy. The strategy, as hard as it is to swallow, just get back up, okay? You will feel better later, okay? You don't have to feel good about it now. You'll feel good about it later. Study for that test now. You'll feel good about it after you ace that exam. That's the Christian message. So as we close now, okay? Hey, we started 15 minutes late. We're only just a few minutes behind schedule. Here we close with this final illustration. I've done this before. But with your left hand, give me a 1. Okay? With your right hand, give me a 2. 1, 2. 1 comes before 2. Okay? 1, obey God. 2, feelings come second. This is the Christian message. And Jesus is the ultimate example of that. And so always keep this in your back pocket. And every time you forget, you take it out. Right? And you say, oh, I don't have to feel good about preparing for live streams. I feel rotten, but I'm going to do it anyway. Why? Obey God first and feel good about it later. And that is the Christian message. Now, this series obviously is not done tonight. I said there's 4 installments. That's what this series is about. We talked about faith. We talked about feelings. We have so many more things to talk about. But I have breaking news for you as we now get ready for the prayer meeting. And that is, I decided to shorten this series a little bit because I would like to give an opportunity to Mr. Cole McCauley. Okay? Because his life was turned upside down, was it not? And he is truly a living testimony of his life getting back up. And I know there have been times when he probably didn't want to, but he did it. And so we're very blessed and fortunate to have him as part of our church. April 9th is the date. And so he will be the finale to this series. I'm going to shorten it up a little bit. And I think it's great to see and hear a living example of how God restores us. And so Cole McCauley's testimony, April 9th, we are going to look forward to that. All right, that's it. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and write them down or talk to me. Even if a couple weeks pass by, I'll still remember, and I will try to answer them. But please, go to the prayer meeting and pray and know that Jesus will experience with you the struggles of your life. Thank you so much for coming tonight. These things will be posted. Join us on Facebook. But see you guys. See you guys next week. Bye-bye.